My name is Jia Trescott. I go to Beachside Montessori village and I am in 6th grade. Today I am going to interview Joe Kubryk, a former Russian resistance fighter who now lives in Aventura, Florida. Joe, thank you for coming today and helping me with my Holocaust project. The topic we're going to discuss is memories of the past and lessons for the future. Having talked to you before, I know you have a lot to teach us, so let's begin. Joe, before the war, what was your childhood like?
My childhood was very difficult because my mother was a doctor and she was working in a hospital, so she couldn't give me too much of time. But in the hospital she had a little room separate for me to play. And when I used to come, I used to be a very bad boy. I used to make noise and used to interfere with her doing in the hospital. So I had to be moved in a different room where I was separated and I couldn't talk to mom no more. I could make noises, but mom wouldn't hear it. So that was all right. And that's how mom didn't like me to do things, and I did, like all the kids. I wasn't any better than anybody else.
What were you planning to be when you grew up?
I was planning to be a doctor because my mom was a doctor, so I was planning to be a doctor. I told her this is maybe the best trade, makes good money, and you're always busy. So I was planning on it, but I never succeeded to do it. My mother was afraid to leave me alone with my grandparents, thinking that they are elderly people and maybe they wouldn't have enough strength to follow my things. I was a mischief. I was all over. Wherever they didn't need me, I was there. That was me. I was always active. And I had a lot of friends. And we used to fight, we used to play nice. It all depends. One day a guy came over to hit me with a stick over the head. I grabbed the stick and I hit him and I split his forehead. So his mother came running, she's going to hit me, she's going to die. My mom came out and says, you touch my son and you're going to be in trouble for the rest of your life. So she backed off and that was it.
So you were close to your parents?
I was close with my mom, very close, because I was most of the time with her. My dad was in charge, like I said, of the Air Force and the paratroopers. And so I could see my father maybe once a week. If I had a very good week, I saw him twice.
Joe, I know this is hard for you, but can you tell me about the day your dad's plane got shot down?
I'm sorry, but this is a little tragical situation for me. My dad was shot down by the Germans. They had an air fight. The planes fight in the air. They shot him down. And he came down close to the hospital, maybe I would say, maybe like from here to across the street to that big building. And my mom came out with another doctor. They picked him up. They brought him into the hospital. Mother told that he's dead. Nobody could do it. He didn't even move. But somehow my mother took a chance. Little by little he came to life, opened up the eyes. Then he started mumbling something that was not understandable what he's saying. But he was talking something.
What happened to your mother?
My mother got killed in that hospital. The Germans came the following day, early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning supposedly. And they started bombarding the hospital. So the bombs fell down, of course, on the building. Part of the building was immediately destroyed. Part that my mother, should rest in peace, work, was yet attacked. But eventually they bombarded and my mother was killed under the degrees of that hospital.
How did you end up living with your grandparents?
Well, as I escaped that time in the shooting, I wandered around until I came to the village when my grandparents lived. I didn't remember from all this commotion and the fright and the way I was frightened from these bullets. I didn't remember when my grandparents lived. I went from house to house to ask about if they know my grandparents. In one house, one farmer knew, and he took me and he put his horse in the sled. It was winter, as in Russia, it's snow, so they use sleds instead of wheels. He took me in the sled, put me on a bundle of straw, and he brought me to my grandfather's house. And my grandfather and grandmother saw me. They started crying and they carried on, forget it. For an hour I couldn't stop them. And of course I was crying myself too. I'm not ashamed to say it. It was kind of a very difficult time in my life. But my grandpa said, from now on, you're not going nowhere without my permission. So he said it. But I knew that I cannot stay with the grandparents. They by themselves, they have no food for themselves. They cannot feed me. One day I just got up and creeped out from the near the barbed wire that was around the house that they lived, and I creeped out of there and I wandered around. I wandered around for 3 months, and sometimes my food was, you know, the birch tree, you take the skin off, the inside is green, and you eat that. If you have no choice, you have no choice. Or there is a leaf that is like this made, but it's cut in like this, like a heart shape with a little tail. And that was sourish.
What religion were your grandparents?
My grandfather was Jewish. My grandma was not. My grandma was Russian. But they married between themselves. In those years, in Russia was no difference, whether you're Jewish or Polish or Negro, whatever. If you found somebody that you fell in love with, and you want to marry him, nobody could stop you. That was your own private decision. And then you married. It was no a marriage with a band of music, with a big, tremendous hurrah. It was married between people that you know, they're not closest people to the family. They came together, we went to the church, and we got married.
How old were you when you ran away?
12 years.
12 years old? How did you get food for yourself while you ran away?
Food?
Hmm?
Getting food was a difficult thing. I came in, let's say, to a house like your mommy. And I came in and asked your mommy, I'm hungry, maybe you can give me a piece of bread or something. So there was ladies or men or family, they have pity on you. And they set you down by the table, and if they have leftovers or she made something special, and you ate. Then you come to a certain house, they throw you like to a dog, the piece of bread and go. But when you're hungry, you don't care how you throw it, you're hungry. To tell you the feelings, you felt like a dog. Somebody that needed food, they throw it to you. And those were very difficult situations.
So, you got into the resistance how?
I wasn't by one of these farmers, and he saw me, he says he would like to hire me to take his cows and his horses to the green. So when I worked for this farmer, nobody knew. The first thing they looked if I'm Jewish. That means if you are circumcised. That was the first time. The first thing they looked, and if they did, see that you hadn't, then you aren't. So they like to stay. They hired you. I was by a farmer a year and a half. These banderos, these Ukrainian partisans used to come to visit to the farmers in the house. They fed them, and I was shivering. I always was afraid. Maybe they catch me. Maybe they know who I'm Jewish. And maybe they said, you know, I was like not with myself. I was always tense. When they left, I went down and I kissed that floor again. That I survived there. And in the morning, I got up and I had to go out, take the cows and the horses to the green, because that's why I'm there, but that's what he keeps me for. It wasn't an easy test. The resistant people came in, and they spoke Russian, and I heard Russian, so I jumped in. Says, who are you? And they told me they are from the Russian military, the partisans actually, which is the guerrilla movement, and they occupy this whole area, and there's no more Germans in this particular area. So you're free in that area.
I read about your partisan training. What did they teach you?
Oh, we did a lot of crazy things. We learned how to jump over, let's say, fences.
Yeah?
And then this is the fence, it's that high, you can then jump over to the other side. And in the other side, they were sitting camouflage. You know what camouflage means? They were sitting camouflage, we didn't see them, and we right away came on top of them, and they started shooting, but this was just making noise. The bullets were not in the shells. It was just the shell that makes noise when you shoot. So the bullet doesn't come out, nobody can get wounded or killed.
Okay, and you also learned spying?
Spying, I learned and I didn't learn. I had to develop it on my own, because when they send you for a mission, for example, they don't know what is there. They know it's a village, and they know that German soldiers come from time to visit there. So if a spy regularly goes, he can be caught very, very easy because of his dressing. A kid comes, they don't pay attention. I used to wave around them, supposedly begging for food or something. This one gave you a candy, this one gave you something else. Meanwhile, I counted how many soldiers are there and what kind of ranks they have. And then I reported it back.
Oh. And what kind of activities did you do against the Germans?
We used to mine the bridges. Let's say the train goes on this bridge. We mine the bridge with mines. As soon as the train comes on top of the locomotive, the first two wheels, come on top of that rail, the rail right away explodes and the whole train goes down into the water.
You did some scary things. Did you regret any of them?
No, I didn't, because those scary things that I did saved my life. So I cannot regret the situation that I saved my own life. But I also was, on the other hand, happy that I was able to help the Germans to be killed from the Russian partisans. Because I was screaming and yelling in Russian. And these partisans that were in the same forest that the Germans came to collect, to kill, sitting on trees and hiding between the branches. You looked in the tree, you couldn't see them. But when the Germans started walking out towards deeper in the forest, then they opened out fire. So they started shooting with the rifles and the machine guns. Rifles and machine guns, when you shoot, is a tremendous explosion you hear, and you hear popping of bullets. You don't know where they're coming from. So you're liable to get scared from that alone. But at my particular position in that time, I didn't care if the bullet kills me or not, as long as I didn't give in to the Germans, and as long as not the German bullet killed me. That was kiddie talk and children type of thinking, child type of thinking, because if a German doesn't give a damn for you, you put the gun, for him to put a bullet through you, it's like for you to say hello. It doesn't mean to them nothing. So you had to go and be also a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whatever you want to call it, in the moment that they ask you these questions. You don't have time to think, you got the answer. Because if you think, they know already that something is cooking. So those things cannot be embedded in you. It cannot be taught to you in any school or in any professor or in any teacher, unless you see it alive, and you see with your own eyes, and you have to make up your own mind what you would do in that particular case. You are grown up girl already, you would have to make up your own mind. Am I going to die, or can I survive if I do this and that? And you have to come up with something that you believe would help you to survive.
Joe, what did it feel like to be an orphan throughout the war?
I don't wish that feeling in nobody. It's a very difficult feeling. So sometimes I used to wake up and I'm looking for my mom. She's not there, of course. And I used to cry. But I cried so quiet, God forbid if they're here, they can right away decide, maybe he's a Hebrew, maybe he's a Jew. Why is he crying? He's got here good. I didn't have this kind of life. American kids is not only you. American kids in general do not know how to appreciate what parents do for them. No matter, because if your mother wouldn't be around, what would you do by yourself? Where can you go? Who would give you clothing? Who would give you food? Who would send you to school? Think about it. So you're very lucky, and you have to be grateful that you have a mom like this, that she does for you everything. And God should bless her for doing it. I wish I would have a mom like this. Even now I wouldn't mind to have a mom like this.
Joe, you're an amazing man. After the war, you snuck into Israel when the British were not letting in refugees. You fought in Israel's War of Independence. You were a spy for Israel after the war. You moved your family to America and became a successful businessman. What do you think helped you survive?
You're asking me a very delicate question that is not so simple to answer, but helped me to survive. And the fear that I had from the enemy helped me to survive, because I was always looking around me. If I walked from here to here, I was watching 10 times over if I can go through, if they're not going to be caught. And no matter how much I did, no matter how careful and cautious I was caught. And I was caught by the Germans. They were dressed in Russian uniforms, pretending the Russians. They caught me, and they tried to bring me in to tell them what I know about where the Russians are, what were the ground that they were occupying it, and sitting there waiting for them to come. And I don't want to tell you, they took like at this door, and they slammed the door on my fingers, and that's terrible pain. It's full of everything, I was bleeding a little. I was crying, and they let me alone, but I still had to say, to tell them what happened. And I told them, I said, well, I have nothing but to lose. Either I'll die or I'll survive. So I did it. And that was my point, where the Germans, the Russians let me go, and I wandered around. And where do you go? I went into the forest, of course. And who do I meet there? The Germans. And they caught me again. And the first thing they did is they opened my pen to see if I'm a Jew, because Jewish kids were circumcised. I was not, so they couldn't say if I'm a Jew or not. And I spoke Jew. I make believe I didn't know too much Jewish to begin with, but I controlled my mouth. I shouldn't, God forbid, spill a word from my mouth that is Jewish. Then they would kill me right there.
Joe, what you went through was amazing. I couldn't survive that. What would a kid like me need to survive what you went through, besides superpowers?
A kid like you would have to be courageous and try to maintain his mouth shut, not to talk things that they're not supposed to be said, not try to convince the enemy to be on your side, because they would be rather very suspicious on it. And those things, they look at you like they looked at me, and they did something that I don't know if you would be able to take it. Like you see the door? They opened the door where the hinges are and put my hand inside. Look at me, I'll show it to you how it is. Look this way.
Okay.
They put my fingers in here and they slammed the door on my fingers. So my fingers fell up and I was screaming, yelling. They spanked me on my face and they sent Donner after me, let me go to hell. That was it. But I didn't say a word and they couldn't find nothing. And my mind is working different. But when you're in a position that you're scared, and you know that they can shoot you any minute, without even they can tell you, go this way, you go in the back, they shoot you. You don't know. But that was already implanted in my mind, because I knew that they're doing those things. So I tried to prevent them from that and tried to save my own skin. I succeeded somehow.
So Joe, how many languages did you speak?
8.
8? What would that be?
English, Jewish, Hebrew, German, Spanish, what else you want?
Languages were one of the things that saved your life?
Language are part of the thing that saved my life, because when they saw I speak Ukrainian and I speak their own language, so they knew I'm not a Jew, because Jews didn't speak Ukrainian or Russian. Jews spoke their own language.
Joe, did you experience any anti-Semitism?
Really, I cannot say it was anti-Semitism because I barely knew that I'm from Jewish descent. The only thing I knew, I'm from Jewish descent and I'm not circumcised, because by the Jews, if a kid was born, he's got to be circumcised. I was not. And that what actually saved me, because they pulled down my pants to check if I'm not circumcised. That was the first thing they did. And then they spoke German, which I understood some of it. Not good, but I understood some of the words. And one of them said, let's shoot him and put him away. And the other one said, no, leave him alone. If he's not a Jew, why should we kill him? And that's how they let me go. And I disappeared. I was always afraid if I saw a German soldier walking, I was going away like 10 blocks away, God forbid I shouldn't face him. Because I'd always, it's implanted in my mind that a German will see me, he'll kill me.
From your experience.
I wouldn't advise anyone to go through that experience and to learn from it, because it's a very difficult lesson to learn. You have to be very courageous and have enough courage to say, I'm going to do this and this and this in front when rifles and machine guns stay loaded to be able to shoot you in a second. So this is not an easy task and not easy to decide on the spur of the moment.
Joe, thank you so much for talking to me about your Holocaust survival experience.
My pleasure.
I know it was very difficult for you, so I'm very grateful that you took your time to talk to me. I have learned a lot from you, and I know those in the future who look at my video will also. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I hope you'll be able to learn something from this kind of experience.